we wanted to tell you guys about the mock draft watch that I have been doing since January. I have one more that's coming out tomorrow, mock draft watch 10.0, but we wanted to tally the numbers ahead of the final mock draft watch. So I've tracked more than 120. 124 is the exact number, Tasker. Started at the end of January, and we are still going strong. And with that, I keep an Excel spreadsheet so that we can track who are the favorite names, who are the favorite position groups, and even divide it up by month. So I wanted to run the list to you and see what you thought. So favorite players mocked to Buffalo at number 30. This should come to note. As no surprise to you guys, because I have talked about this over the last few months.
This guy has become part of the family, whether he wants to be or not. Which means probably there's no chance he's gone. He's gone by 30, but we'll see.
Last year, the favorite names were Adonai Mitchell and Brian Thomas Jr. We did not draft either of those players.
Neither of them made it to us.
Keon Coleman was in the mix there, though, in the middle of the pack for guys who are getting mocked to Buffalo. But the favorite this season has been the defensive tackle out of Michigan, Kenneth Grant, being mocked to Buffalo 22 times out of the 124 that I've tracked. And then the list goes on. Number 2 is cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. He was mocked to Buffalo 12 times. And then there's a tie for 3rd place and a tie for 5th place. Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon, and cornerback Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. They were both mocked to Buffalo 9 times. And then bringing up the rear, but not really, tied for 5th most, is defensive tackle Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, safety Nick Eamon-Wari out of South Carolina, and cornerback Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina, all mocked to Buffalo 7 times. So those are the favorite names and how we've tracked them, looking at favorite players by month to see how that changed. Well, Kenneth Grant was the favorite player by month in 3 out of the 4 months we've tracked mock drafts. Grant was the favorite in January, March, and April. The favorite in February is surprising to me. The favorite name being mocked to the Bills at 30th overall in February was a wide receiver, Matthew Golden out of Texas. He had his moment there with the Bills.
That's right. He was there for a minute. Yeah. That, and then at the bottom at this list, you've got the guy who's really been I've seen lately is Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. I think that's we've got a shot at that. Trey Amos might be there for the Bills, and if it's not Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston could be there as well. But after we talk about all this and see how this goes, neither one of these guys, none of these guys, Kenneth Grant, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, none of them may be on the board when we get there.
Kenneth Grant.
That's kind of the way it is.
Right. Kenneth Grant was the favorite in April, being mocked to Buffalo 7 times out of the 46 I tracked. But number 2, like you mentioned, was Trey Amos, being mocked to Buffalo 6 times in April out of the 46 tracked. Then you go over to position groups, because that's a big part of this conversation too, is who do the analysts and experts believe Buffalo's going to draft, regardless of the player, which position group is the favorite. And it was defensive line, being mocked to the Bills 46% of the time. Now, if you divvy that up in between defensive tackle and edge rusher, defensive tackle was the favorite 42 times out of the 124. That's 34%. But really close. Second place, cornerback mocked to Buffalo 41 times at 33%. And as you go down the list, edge rusher is next, 15 times, and then safety and wide receiver tied for 13.
There's a lot in this, because if you leave that graphic up that we're looking at, defensive tackle and corner, those are, defensive tackle is a need, and so is corner. Plus, corner is a money spot. Edge rusher, the Bills already, you just extended, A.J. Epinesa, Rousseau's under contract, Javon Solomon's still here. They got guys that can already line up. It's not a need. Safety, you could say, okay, we need it, but that's not a money spot for a first-round selection, even if it is at number 30. Wide receiver is a money spot. And even though the Bills have got a room full and probably a accomplished room full of wide receivers this year than they did last year when they set a franchise scoring record. Wide receiver's still a money position that kind of gets kicked up the priority list, even for mock drafters. So the safety and the wide receiver, I still think safety is a much bigger need or want than wide receiver, but wide receiver's just flat out more important. So that's why they're mocked almost identical. It's really interesting about this defensive tackle cornerback. I mean, that's been last year was wide receiver. This year it's like defensive tackle corner. Let's see it. And then, they just signed a former All-Pro corner yesterday, who knows the system and fits it.
So we'll see. There's mock drafts coming out today and tomorrow, so we'll see if that shifts anything, because a lot of these mock drafts were tracked before Trey White signed with Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Now, news was out there unofficially that he was coming to Buffalo, but he had not signed yet. And the last thing I wanted to bring up before we get into some favorite names of mine is favorite positions by month. Who was the most popular positions heading to Buffalo at 30 by month? Defensive tackle owned the first 3 months of tracking these mock drafts. January, February, and March, defensive tackle was the most popular position group heading to Buffalo at number 30. But in April, here comes the cornerback position being mocked the most out of any other position group at 19 times compared to defensive tackle at 13 times out of the 46 tracked so far.
That's because of Bosa, Hoyt, and Ogunjobi, the signings that they they made. They did that in mid-March in free agency. So they got those guys under contract. So April, everybody's like, oh, well, they're not going to take a defensive tackle at all. Well, not so fast. So everything changed when you get these free agent signings and all of that, and then it kind of went back to the norm. Then Kenneth Grant was right back to the top of the list after 1 month off. It'll be really interesting to see where that guy lands. You guys kind of get to know the guy. Like Michael Thomas Jr., I thought, he's going to be a
Brian Thomas
Bill.
Jr.
He's going to be a Bill. Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to be a Bill. We thought that for months last year. Now he's a Jacksonville Jack and played very well for them, which is why he didn't fall to the Bills.
Exactly.
Somebody knew it.
And we've seen Kenneth Grant going in the early 20s. So it'll just depend on how the board falls, how teams see these players. But now I want to reveal some of my favorite names.
All right.
That could be available for Buffalo in the first round. Not saying at 30 they may have to move to go grab these guys. And then wanted to reveal some names who have become favorites of mine that will be available for Buffalo in the second and third round, because we've talked ad nauseum about these guys who could head to Buffalo in the first round. So I want to give some love to some names we might have not talked about as much. So in terms of guys that could come off the board at 30, or maybe a little bit earlier if Buffalo decides to move up in the draft, these are guys that I've really enjoyed watching and are on my list as favorites. The first, a defensive tackle, Derek Harmon out of Oregon. He's 6'4", 313 pounds, had 5 sacks last season, and Harmon is a physically gifted player who knows how to use his strength to cause chaos. He has strong hands to control people. Harmon engages to shed blocks and disrupts quarterbacks. Harmon is a run stopper, pops into lanes, and makes sure the play ends right there. His frame takes up a lot of space, which frees his edge rushers up to go get the quarterback. This is why I really like Derek Harmon as a defensive tackle, why he was at the top of my list.
And I'll say this too, Derek Harmon as a defensive tackle rushes the passer well.
Exactly.
And that's, I think he's a 3-down player. We talked to, Brandon Beane said yesterday they kind of put their defensive linemen into buckets where there's a 3-down player, a 2.5-down player, and then, a 2-down player. Derek Harmer is a 3-down player to me because he can rush the passer from the inside, and that would really help the Bills. That's
what Brandon Beane said, is the guys who are getting paid big-time money at the defensive tackle position now are players who, yes, they can stop the run, but they're players who can act as a pass rusher and knock down the quarterback, finish the play. That is what's most important. And with Derek Harmon, you see the skill set to play at the defensive tackle position, but you also see the skill set for him to go rush the passer. Next up on the list, we'll stick with defensive line. And edge rusher James Pierce out of Tennessee, 6'5", 245. Traits. He ran a 4.47 at the edge rusher position, had 7.5 sacks last season. First team All SEC. He combines a relentless effort with good speed to power to get home. Pierce has a good feel and instincts for the position. He can effectively get off blocks, works his way inside, and knows when to pause in pursuit as the play unfolds. Pierce's frame and length allows him to shed blockers and reach to finish tackles. He has rare traits and size and speed that turned into 19.5 sacks for him in his 3 years at Tennessee. The thing about Pierce is the bend is not necessarily there for him. He plays more upright at that position. So the question is, can you get a player who can add some strength to his frame at 245 pounds and learn how to bend to play a little bit more fluid at that position?
Right. He's got to be able to get around the corner and also hold up in the run game. He weighs less than 250 pounds, but as you said, he's long. He's got a lot of length and can get off the edge. The guy's really fast. So he runs a sub-4.5 40 at 250 pounds or just shy of it. He's going to be an immediate impact player, I think. But he may be only like a one-down player. Oh, and that'll be third down, but that's it. If you get him, and then you can get another, run stuffer up front, but if you can get a run stuffer, or whatever, so that you can put him in there on other downs, and he doesn't have to do so much in the run game, you might give that a shot. But that's the word on him, and he will. I think he will be available for the Bills at 30. I think you got a chance at actually getting that guy.
And that's a player who the coaching staff has to believe. We like the traits here. We like what he offers, but we believe we can add to his toolbox. Another
thing, it's a thing we've been talking about with Shedeur Sanders. When they sit down with him and look him in the eye and ask him some serious questions about his life, about what his philosophy is, what he likes about football, what he doesn't like about football, if he impresses in that atmosphere, that could sell him to the Bills. If he's got the DNA that they talk about so much, that could be a real difference maker for him if he sits down and sells the Bills coaching staff on who and what he can be, not just who and what he is.
Let's round out the list of first-round players that are my favorites. 2 cornerbacks. I've spoken about this cornerback for about a month now, and a month ago, he was somebody who was flying off the board in the teens. Now recently has fallen in terms of his draft stock for a couple of reasons that I don't think are big reasons. In Peter Schrager's latest mock draft, he has Michigan cornerback Will Johnson falling to the 28th overall pick. If he falls, I would be pumped to see Buffalo move up and go get the cornerback. Why? Because he's tall, he's got some bulk to him, 6'2", 194 pounds, had 2 interceptions last year at Michigan, turned those 2 interceptions into touchdowns, has 9 career interceptions. When you turn on the tape, Johnson has incredible instincts, plays the position like he was born to play it. Johnson has a knack for finding the end zone when he picks the ball off. I look at him as a hunter who oozes with confidence. Everything looks easy for Johnson. An athletic, tall frame, Johnson can read and anticipate super effectively and can jump routes like a cheetah. That's the type of cornerback I want on my team when you're facing some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. This is a guy who I believe in time can line up with a wide receiver 1 and go knock the ball away.
Yeah, he's 6'2", almost 200 pounds. And like you said, Maddy, he plays a position like he was really like it's his spot, like it's his wheelhouse. He sees it. He's confident. Now this is I don't know that he's not the guy that hasn't had some injury issues.
He didn't finish the season last year. Played in 6 games and missed some time with a foot injury. So that's one of the knocks on him, and he did not run a 40.
That's why teams are hesitant about. I think that's the only reason they're hesitant about him is because of that question of can he hold up, even at that size, can he hold up at the position for a real pro career? And if you're going to pick a guy high like that, you want to have confidence he can get to a second contract and be productive for years to come. You don't want, that's kind of what you're hoping for. But if you get him, and even if he only plays 3 years for you, if he plays at that high a level, maybe you take that shot.
And then the final cornerback that I think could be available for Buffalo in the first round or maybe early in the second round if they decide to trade out is Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. I have really fallen in love with his tape. Another tall, big corner, 6'1", 195, ran a 4.43. This guy has speed. 3 interceptions last season, had his best season last year, all SEC first team. Physical, tall, and fast cornerback who can win against SEC wide receivers. Amos uses his size and strength to crowd receivers at the catch point. Amos has cat-like reflexes to get his hands on balls. Really good route recognition from him, which allows him to play fast and break up passes. Amos can play zone or press. Amos is more natural in zone, which he can let himself read and react, uses those instincts in zone coverage. I think in the NFL today, you need height, speed, and the willingness to not back down from a fight that's needed at the cornerback position, and you get that with Trey Amos. Standing tall at 6'1" and 195 pounds, Amos has the physicality and instincts to get involved in a lot of plays. You're getting someone who I think can play in multiple positions in terms of zone and press, and I think he can grow in his fluidity at the next level.
Yeah, he is very tall and very fast. 2 pretty good traits for a corner. He does seem to have that, what you said, Maddy, that little competitive edge that he likes to. He's a little bit of a
not going to back down from it.
He's a spark guy. He likes the competition. He likes the one-on-one challenge, and he seems to have the right attitude to play that spot. So yeah, got a tall guy. He's 6'2", just under 200 pounds at 195, and he runs extremely well. So, yeah, I like him as well. I would be really happy with Will Johnson or Trey Amos if the Bills got down to picking a corner at that spot.
And if the Bills decide to move out of the first round, if they believe their board is getting wiped and they just got to move out because Amos is off the board, Johnson's off the board, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, James Pierce, we got to get out of here because it's not worth it. Here are some names that I think would be great additions to Buffalo's roster. In the second and the third round is where these guys are projected. We'll start with cornerback first. There's a cornerback out of Notre Dame, Benjamin Morrison, who has some off-the-charts type of traits with the way he plays the position. 6'0", 193, so again, tall and big corner. I like tall and big corners for what they're going up against in the league. 9 career interceptions. Now, Morrison did miss the final 10 games of the season with a hip injury. He only played in 6. If Morrison finished out his entire last season, I think he would have been projected as a first-round cornerback because Morrison plays with strong hands and body control to get leverage on routes over a wide receiver, which turns into interceptions. Morrison does not give up on a play until it's over, especially on the deep routes. That's his specialty. Makes knocking those balls away look very easy. When Morrison is near the ball, he does a great job of going for it and has wide receiver-like hands. If you're watching on MSG right now, you can see it. Morrison provides sticky coverage, and he has an athletic frame, can run routes for these wide receivers, and I think is really good off coverage. It seems like the foundation is there for this corner with his ability to track balls and knock them down. You wonder about how that versatility can change at the next level. And he's shown that he can have seasons with great production. Morrison had 6 interceptions during his freshman year.
Yeah, and he uses good technique. Seems to be confident in what he does. He's one of those guys that, I don't know, he even at the highest level, he played at Notre Dame. At the highest level, he's playing with a lot of confidence. Mm-hmm. Like there's nobody out there that's gonna be. He's not gonna rise to the challenge, dude. That's a great attitude as part of that position's makeup, and that's why he's right. You're thinking about him in the late first to mid second round pick at corner. He plays like an elite corner at the college level. And the question is, like you said, can he do it at the next level? He's going to be good. How good can he be? You bring him to this building, I think he's going to maximize it because we've got that going. McDermott's got that going about the culture here. Guys thrive here. That might be the kind of guy that if you do trade out of the first round and he's still sitting there, it's like, he's going to be really good for us.
3 more guys that I quickly wanted to get to. We'll stick with Notre Dame because there's a safety out of Notre Dame, Xavier Watts, who plays the safety position with so much confidence. 6 feet, 204 pounds, 13 career interceptions. He won the Nagurski Trophy in 2023, which is awarded to the nation's top defender. Watts is a ball hawk, aggressive with the way that he flies to the football, no tiptoeing around. He plays with a lot of confidence. Watt plays with a super high IQ as well, has great instincts about him. He knows where to be and knows how to read and anticipate quarterbacks and wide receivers. That turns into interceptions, 13 total in his college career. Watts also offers versatility in the position with how rangy he can be, single high, split, and even lined up over the slot some during his college career. I think this guy offers you incredible instincts with production that are intoxicating. The versatility is there as well, and he was a 2-time All-American.
Yeah, the thing, too, when he was playing at Notre Dame, you see him making a lot of tackles in the run game, not only up in the box like coming up as a blitzer off the edge, but also coming up from the deep in the secondary, making plays at the line of scrimmage.
Magnet to the football.
Yeah, he finds it, which always gives you the idea, particularly when he comes from the secondary, that he sees it way before it happens. He recognizes it, that he plays between his ears, and that's what that safety spot is. So yeah, he's a really, really good safety prospect, and if the Bills get to the point where they're looking for a guy and, one of the wide receiver and the defensive end and the defensive tackle are gone, all that, safety this is a guy I think that would really compete to start day one for the Bills. He's got that kind of anticipation and athleticism.
Everybody has been talking about Shamar Stewart, the defensive lineman out of Texas A&M, who's projected to go somewhere in the first round, has these incredible traits, but only had 4.5 sacks in his collegiate career. There was a defensive lineman lining up next to him on Texas A&M's roster. He's a defensive tackle, Shamar Turner. 6'3", 290 pounds, had 10 sacks in his career, second-team All-SEC in 2023. And Turner is fun to watch, has first-step quickness and packs a lot of power in his punch. Turner has violent hands and a violent rip move with the way he gets off of his blocks. A high-effort type of player who you want on your roster. He's going to find a way to get around blockers when a play is extended. Scratch, claw, bite type of effort shows up on tape. Turner also offers flexibility to a defense because he lined up all over Texas A&M's defensive front, but mostly played a 3-tech. These are the type of traits that you want out of a defensive tackle. Playing the defensive tackle position is hard to do. It's not easy. It hurts. But this is a guy who has the effort and the aggressiveness in his play style and offers you flexibility that I think could help at an NFL level with the way that the Bills rotate their defensive line.
Yeah, and exactly. I'd have a hard time getting this guy at number 30. Because he's a little undersized for a defensive tackle. He's, under 300 pounds. But depending on his versatility, how he handles the personal interviews, that kind of stuff, he's definitely a good enough athlete to play at the NFL level. Now, he may be a defensive end type in the pros.
He started there,
right,
and he moved to the tackle position.
And if you find out, because you talked to the Texas A&M, and I haven't, but if you call the Texas A&M people and you say, why was he playing down inside? They say, because we needed him to. We didn't have any, but he was better than any of the bigger guys we had. He handled it. So that's different. If you move down because the team needs you to, that's awesome. If you move down because you can't play outside and you can only play inside, that's different. So there's different reasons why he wasn't playing maybe at the end. And if you can find that stuff out, it helps you evaluate him because at 6'3", 290, he's built to play outside at this level. But man, he's an athlete, and I like what I see. And like he gets after the run just as much as he tries to rush the passer. He's really good at it. I'm thinking you're right. He's going to be a player that
it's like a third-round projection.
Yeah, he's going to be a player that's in the rotation and even make a handful of plays during the year.
One more. If
Okay.
290 pounds is too light for you at the defensive tackle position, let me offer you up this name, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State, Tyreek Williams, 6'3", 334 pounds, 11 and a half sacks in his career. Williams is a feisty defensive tackle who plays with a high motor. At 334 pounds, Williams has rare quickness to him that you see when he's chasing down quarterbacks. That quickness turns into power upon impact. Williams can shed blocks, clog up gaps with his frame. When he gets his hands on somebody, they are going to go down. He's good at stopping the run as well. I love the energy that you see out of Williams, and I love his ability to clog up gaps so you can allow a defensive tackle like Ed Oliver next to you to go rush the passer.
Yeah. He has been linked to the Bills on a number of occasions because of the spot he plays. Ohio State, he played very well down inside. He's very big. He's a big dude, hard to move. And those guys always kind of have a spot, wherever they're going to be. And if the Bills draft this guy, you're going to see him on the field a ton for the Bills, I think. I think he's just that kind of guy. He's going to be, he's, like you said, 3.5 Bills almost. He's going to be on the field for an NFL team. And, he's let me look at it here. 6'3", 330. And he's athletic enough. You watch him play, and he doesn't move. He moves better than a 330-pound guy. Yeah, he's a little bit of a run-first guy, so he might be a two-down player for the Bills. But down the line, yeah, maybe even at pick 62, at the end of the second round where he's our third pick, I could see that happening easily.
Yeah. So those are my favorites out of the first and the second and third round, some guys who I've really enjoyed watching their film. It's been so fun to track all these mock drafts. 124 is what we end up with. There's going to be one more mock draft watch coming out tomorrow, but it's one of my favorite things to do in the off season. It keeps me busy, and I love falling in love with these prospects.
Yeah.
It's so fun to talk about their strengths, their physicality, what they can bring to the next level, and it's even cooler to see what they turn into